From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Keeping dairy cows healthy, all from your phone. See the latest technology. Going green.
When he planted it, I thought, there'll never be a stand of corn in this field. It can't come through, but it did.
How one farmer starts off planting with green fields and ends with them too. And cattle market controversy.
The majority of cattle producers around the country don't support mandates.
My view is that if we don't do something, we're going to continue to see this further deterioration of the negotiated trade.
A key piece of legislation that could impact the entire cattle industry comes up for a big vote right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Senate Ag Committee is scheduled to vote tomorrow on the much debated and discussed Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. AgDay national reporter Michelle Rook looks at the details of the bill and its chances of passage.
Clinton, the cattle industry has been working with lawmakers for more than 2 years on a legislative reform for the cattle market. The Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act was introduced by farm state senators, including Chuck Grassley of Iowa, Deb Fischer of Nebraska, John Tester of Montana, and Ron Wyden of Oregon. Now, it's designed to improve competition and ensure more fairness through robust price discovery and transparency. However, farm country is divided over the bill. Independent cattle producers like Craig Moss believe the cattle market is broken. He says it's controlled by the big four packers, and that was never more evident than during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Really displayed what happens in this part of the world. They'll keep their contracts flowing, and the cash is, like I said, a residual supply. They'll use us when they need us, and it's even difficult just to get stuff done in a timely manner.
He says the increased competition and transparency in the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act would help level the playing field. The bill creates a cattle contract library and mandates regional negotiated cash minimums packers would have to buy on a weekly basis.
But I think the minimums is really I think the biggest benefit will to prevent further erosion of the cash trade percentage, because it's our last form of price discovery.
Cattle producer Brad Koima worked with Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley on the market fix that is supported by many feeders in the north. It's the southern feedlots that are pushing back on the mandate.
I think the transparency side of it has got a lot of traction. You know, the next day weights, the formula library, this sort of thing. The whole hang-up gets to be when you get to this mandate, right? I mean, where, nobody's going to tell us how many we got to do, that sort of mentality.
And those mandates are the reason Farm Bureau and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association also oppose the bill.
The majority of cattle producers around the country don't support mandates. These AMAs, these alternative marketing arrangements, are tools that the vast majority of cattle producers are using now to make more money on their cattle, to receive premiums on those cattle, to be rewarded for investments in genetics and improvements in quality.
He says even cow-calf producers use the AMAs to provide signals that they're raising the right kind of cattle for the market and for the consumer. But Koima says AMAs aren't for everyone.
I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an AMA. There's plenty of room for both of us. Just make sure that you maintain some integrity, that there's enough price discovery that you actually have a market.
So the question is, what are the bill's chances of passage?
Senator Grassley himself still acts confident that it's at least going to be good enough to get a chance at a vote, I guess, and then we'll see what happens from there.
There's very little support in the House for the Fischer-Grassley bill. This is really a Senate-side conversation, and more specifically, it's a Senate Ag Committee conversation. Support for this bill drops off dramatically once you leave the Senate Agriculture Committee.
Despite those headwinds, cattle producers that support the legislation say they're fighting to protect their livelihoods.
My view is that if we don't do something, we're going to continue to see this further deterioration of the negotiated trade. Along with that, the further liquidation of more and more of the small to medium-sized people like my customers and like the way I feed cattle and my family feeds cattle.
In Iowa, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay. NCBA also opposes companion legislation, the Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act, that would create a new USDA office dedicated to enforcing competition rules under the Packers and Stockyards Act. That's also scheduled to be voted on by the Senate Ag Committee this week.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Now, NCBA also opposes companion legislation, the Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act that would create a new USDA office dedicated to enforcing competition rules under the Packers and Stockyards Act. That is also scheduled to be voted on by the Senate Ag Committee this week. Happening right now, with hot temperatures continuing, there's concern about the possibility of more snow melt and runoff in already flooded areas around Yellowstone National Park. In the farming town of Fromberg, the Clarks Fork of the Yellowstone River flooded almost 100 homes and badly damaged a major irrigation ditch that serves many of the farms in the area. Now, the town's mayor says about a third of the flooded homes can't be repaired. The town is home to 400 people. High heat is being blamed for causing roads to buckle in Minnesota. A sheriff's office south of Minneapolis is reporting 3 concrete blowouts on Old Highway 14 due to the extreme heat. They say these can happen later in the day when concrete has become superheated in the 90-degree weather. Now, a similar problem was spotted north of Minneapolis with a major road buckling on I-35. Summer officially starts today, and those hot conditions continue in the Midwest. Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire joins us with more. Andrew.
Yes, it's another heat wave across the United States, and as we take a look at the Weather Watch headlines for today, we're going to see that heat wave that's going to continue across the Midwest, Great Lakes states, and we're going to continue to kind of see that ongoing heat wave continuing across the southern half of the U.S. beyond this week and continuing into the last few days of this month of June. But with the heat will come the potential here for a few spotty severe thunderstorms across the Great Lakes and Ohio River Valley as we go throughout Tuesday and Wednesday of this upcoming week. Let's take a look at the jet stream now as we go ahead and take a look at that hot and humid weather that's going to again continue to impact parts of the United States here as we go throughout the first half of this week. It does look like, though, by this weekend we'll see some of that extreme heat beginning to drop its way back south across the southern half of the southern plains and across the desert southwest, with at least a brief sign of relief across the far northern plains and upper Midwest. Looking at our precipitation forecast over the course of the rest of this week, you can definitely tell where that upper level ridge is centered. We see more of those bright yellows and oranges. That's where we're watching the potential for a few pockets of some heavier downpours, some more active weather as we go throughout this week, anywhere from Colorado, Arizona, up across the Dakotas and across the far eastern seaboard. And how great is this? Josh of Gridley, Illinois, says his dad organized a tractor parade to a couple of nursing homes during COVID. And it was so popular, they have decided they want it every year. All the colors on display there. All more in your AgDay forecast coming up.
USDA didn't release its Monday crop progress report due to the federal holiday. Now, when it comes out later today, summer planting is expected to be all but finished. And for some Indiana farmers, fields, well, they started green before a seed ever touched the ground. Freshly tilled soil, perfectly pristine rows and dots of emerging plants as far as the eye can see is not how Owensville, Indiana farmer Aaron Kruger rolls.
Well, last year was the first year that we really began planting green into what I would call big covers.
Planting green into cover crops 5 to 7 feet tall, including cereal rye and legumes, rolled or crimped down, it may look a little busy.
Crimping that down, creates a nice mat for weed suppression, for moisture retention.
And it doesn't hang up as much on the toolbar, while helping feed nutrients to the plants.
Sent off a sample a couple weeks ago of the above ground biomass out to a lab in Nebraska, and they ran an analysis on it for the nutrients in it, and it actually came back as roughly 2 tons of dry biomass and had about 70 pounds of nitrogen in it.
Trying new things may seem logical for a young farmer like Aaron, but his grandfather and partner is rolling right with him.
At my age, it gets a little harder to make changes, but I've trusted my grandson, and it is working for us.
He says last year, some of these fields had the best crop they've ever grown.
When he planted it, I thought, there'll never be a stand of corn in this field. It can't come through, but it did.
He ran the combine, and watching the yield monitor confirmed their success. Water infiltration is good, and soil loss is less, as field drains run clearer.
It's a real-life example of what could happen, how you transition from possibly a conventional operation to a more soil health, environmental operation. And to see what he's doing now, my next question for him is, what would you like to do next?
Less tillage also means fewer trips across the field as diesel hits new records.
If you got to work at a time or two and, you know, put a pass on with anhydrous or whatever the situation is, you just have to be geared up where you can do it all at once. And whereas in my situation where the equipment I have invested in, I think it's good equipment, but it's pretty much just a one pass.
Bender farms nearby and has moved to a similar setup, as has fellow Indiana farmer Tom Rudolph.
We're trying to do something that we've been doing for 100 years, you know, we're trying to do it a different way, and it's hard for everyone to wrap their head around.
But I think the stand should be fine because it's been drier.
This year, the corn is up, and so are their expectations.
It takes a few years to get used to it, and all of this seeing is believing, and just slowly increasing your comfort level.
As they work to make planting green the unconventional standard on their farm. The EPA is being told by an appeals court to take another look at whether glyphosate is potentially harmful to humans, wildlife, or the environment. The 9th District Federal Appeals Court in California, in a 3-0 decision, ruled EPA had not adequately evaluated the weed killer's potential impact on human health and endangered species when it reauthorized its use back in January of 2020. Bayer responding to the decision, saying it stands by EPA's findings, and in a statement adding glyphosate-based herbicides can be used safely and do not cause cancer. Now, the Supreme Court is expected to decide soon whether to hear Bayer's appeal of one case where a man was awarded $25 million in damages, blaming his cancer on herbicides containing glyphosate. Are bears or bulls ahead for milk prices this summer? We'll discuss that next in Analysis. And later, a little lunch and some advice from one of the world's leading financial minds. How much is that worth? The answer in the country.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's June 21st online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
This past March marked the highest ever U.S. monthly average all milk price at $25.90 per hundredweight, but since that time, dairy has been on the downswing. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with more in today's analysis.
Joining me with market analysis today, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. Let's talk about the milk markets today. Class 3 fluid prices kind of hitting their tops there around that June 7th through the 9th period in the deferred contracts, and we've been trailing lower. What's the problem? Is that a demand concern or what, Brian?
I think it's a demand concern. So I'm not sure if it's a problem. We've seen the milk market sort of give up and then come back in past months. Like all other markets, we continue to see money chase commodities when they set back. But the thing you've got out there in the sort of the consumer world is this constant sticker shock when you either fill up at the pump or you go to the grocery store. And so I think consumers are starting to push back. They push back through their dollar vote. Their dollar vote is that the dollar just doesn't go as far. So they're just not going to pick up as much inventory. They become a little bit more hand to mouth. But some of that sort of discretionary buying, I think, is beginning to really find a home. Just as an example, I was watching a news station, my local news station the other day, and one interviewee came on. They were interviewing people in the grocery store, and he said, you know, I kind of had the luxury of just buying what I wanted. He said, I don't buy anything now unless it's on sale, and I'm buying less of everything and being more cautious of what I eat, what I throw out. So I think that's indicative of this sort of economic environment we're in, and people are really getting concerned about their 401ks and their savings in the equities and bonds. It's been a rough last 3 months, 4 months.
Thanks for that analysis. Appreciate it. Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing, and you can learn more at agweb.com. More Ag Day coming up.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779. It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Meteorologist Andrew Whitmire joining us, taking a look at our temperatures here. Andrew, it's going to be hot again and pretty widespread across the Midwest.
Yeah, you can really see where it screams close to near triple digits, all the way from southern Texas, all the way up to the upper peninsula of Michigan. is all going to be under the gun here for another heat wave across the United States. And the one thing to notice here on this map, it's going to be about the same temperature as it will be in Phoenix, Arizona, as it could be close to St. Louis in Chicago. And again, it's going to be more of a drier heat for much of the Great Lakes. Upper Midwestern states is an area of high pressure. That heat dome is going to stay further off towards the deep south, which is again is going to kind of suppress that humidity levels further off to the south. Unlike last week, where again we were dealing with high humidity values from Illinois, Michigan up towards Minnesota, Indiana, and Ohio, much lower humidity levels with this round of heat. As we go into tomorrow morning for Wednesday morning, we're still going to be seeing kind of an unpleasant night, an unpleasant morning, but by the time we head towards the afternoon, notice the temperature change here. We went from triple digits close to Chicago to barely reaching 90 degrees for a Wednesday afternoon. That's all signs of a cold front that's going to work its way across parts of the Great Lakes, upper Midwestern region here as we go into Tuesday, right on into Wednesday. Notice these kind of yellow shaded areas. These are the areas that we are watching here for the potential for an isolated tornado, damaging winds, and a few downpours. Putting this together onto future radar here as we go throughout Tuesday morning. Again, that heat dome is centered across the deep south and across to the eastern portion of Texas. We'll be watching this cold front, though, working its way through. Notice a few scattered showers and thunderstorms try to bubble up around that as we head towards late Tuesday and continuing across the Ohio River Valley as we head on towards Wednesday. That will continue to work its way along the eastern coastline. Meanwhile, this heat dome continues to cripple kind of the southern parts here of the United States, and that is, again, we're going to be watching for potential for more heat to kind of stay across the southern half of the states. Looking at future precipitation here, and as we go throughout at least Friday of this week, you can see some much needed rain is going to be potentially needed down there across the parts of Colorado as well as parts of Arizona. Let's take a closer look at home. Newberry, Ohio, sunny and hot. Check out that temperature, 91 degrees. Going up to Fargo in North Dakota, sunny and breezy, where they just got done with triple-digit heat. Highs only into those middle 80s for Tuesday. And then as we go into Guthrie, Texas, hot, high 100.
More ag groups are coming out against a proposed rule regarding greenhouse gas emissions disclosure requirements. The Securities and Exchange Commission's proposed rule would mandate climate disclosures from publicly traded companies. Now, the National Milk Producers Federation says the rule could undermine the dairy industry's progress toward its sustainability goals and create a far-reaching technical and financial challenge for American dairy farmers and cooperatives. Now, the SEC says the possible rule would provide consistent, comparable, and reliable information to investors to help them make informed judgments about the impact of climate-related risks on investments. Well, several other farm groups, including the American Farm Bureau Federation and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, have also come out against the proposal. We connect all kinds of devices to the internet, so why not cows? One company has come up with something that they say will give dairy producers an inside look at the health of their cattle. It's called Smacks Tech, and it's being used by some dairy producers in Wisconsin. Now, the company says the sensors can even give up to a day's notice of when a calf is about to be born. It works using a sensor that is placed inside the cow, and then it starts gathering information, sending out alerts and recommendations right to your smartphone. Now, one farmer says the technology helps him catch sick cows and cows having problems much sooner than they were able to in the past. All right, so how much would you pay for a good lunch and good conversation? If you said millions, then you would be in the ballpark for stakes with one of the world's richest investors. Details next. Now, what would you pay to bend the ear of one of the world's most well-known investors? How does $19 million sound? That's how much someone paid to have lunch with legendary investor Warren Buffett. Now, Buffett auctions off a lunch every year for charity, and that $19 million is a record-breaking price. It's more than 4 times the winning bid in 2019, which was the last auction before a break due to the pandemic. Now, the bidder is remaining anonymous, but whoever it is, they will get to have a private steak lunch with Buffett and up to 7 guests at a fancy steakhouse in New York City. This year's lunch will be the last one auctioned off. With Buffett, the money, it goes to a San Francisco-based nonprofit working on combating poverty, hunger, and homelessness. And there you have it. That's all of our time this morning from all of us here at AgDay. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Thanks for watching. Have a great day on Farm Country.